Hey folks, it's Chris here at the Martial Alchemy channel, and today in our What Is series we are doing probably the most important video that we've done so far, personal space. Let's cover it. So real quick, this video does contain some information that has to do with local laws and things that can actually legitimately get you in serious trouble. We're not lawyers. The information that we are providing are based on the laws and code in our area, which is Northern Virginia. They don't necessarily apply to where you are. I have no idea where you are in YouTube lands. So make sure that you are aware of your own local codes and laws, that if you ever end up in a actual self-defense situation, that you get yourself a lawyer, a defense lawyer of some sort, because you're probably, unless it's consensual and there's things going on and you're not, in any problems, that's one thing, but self-defense is a tricky issue, and it gets really, really tricky when you get into things like what we're going to talk about today, which is personal space. How do you know, when do you know, why do you know, and what you can do if a person enters into your space and you feel legitimately threatened, not threatened? What's the difference between fighting and self-defense? We're going to cover all of that today.
All right, so this was a thought I kind of came across, a kind of a semantic argument in terms of ranging versus personal space. Personal space we think of as a very social thing. It's you're out, you're talking to people. I'm a close talker. Now I'm in, this is my comfortable personal space, but I grew up in Texas where people tend to have a lot of space around them, and that's really no joke. I then spent several years in the mid-Atlantic along the East Coast, and you wind up, a lot more crowded with people on the streets and stuff. And so
I just naturally move away.
So you create space.
Create space.
So when you're talking about personal space, you start to think of, am I comfortable, am I not comfortable? And those are kind of your instincts. And of course, that's going to differ based on social norms, where you grew up, where you had the most social interaction, and you'll notice that it's different for different places. And as you become comfortable or uncomfortable in personal space, you then to start, your warning lights tend to go off in certain situations where I don't have enough personal space, and now I feel like I'm in danger. So we're going to get into that, because you really can't talk personal space, martial arts, ranging, without moving into self-defense. And so you had mentioned that every school should be covering personal space, ranging, and the topic we're about to cover.
Right. So this is one of the things that, I don't want to sound like your school's no good, sort of one of these preachy type of people on the YouTube talking about martial arts. But if your school doesn't cover this and they claim they teach self-defense, they do not teach self-defense. They teach fighting. They teach fighting techniques. They teach whatever it is, but it's not self-defense. If your instructor has never covered this topic, if they've never researched it themselves, if they don't, ask them to, right? There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know enough about this, I should go research it. Ask your instructor. Some people are like, oh, that's rude to tell your instructor to then run to another martial arts school, because it's not self-defense, and you legitimately, this is one of the things I'm extremely passionate about. If you're doing this, know what you're in for. Because if you do this wrong, if you are training in a studio that's teaching you how to fight and developing this mindset, and you call it self-defense because I'm defending myself, it's not, right? It's not self-defense, don't claim it is. This is how you're going to end up in a lot of trouble. And a lot of people out there think that they're doing self-defense. They are not. They're fighting. And we're going to get into this semantics behind that mentality, which is really, really important. It's crucial. And if your martial arts school isn't teaching it, that's all I'm going to say about it.
Or at least covering it.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to do some drills that kind of illustrate the points here. And again, we're going off of Northern Virginia or Virginia law and codes and their definition of self-defense. Even still, like, it's a whole lot of gray zone and a lot of, you know, what witnesses say, if there's cameras involved. All of this stuff comes into play here. So we're kind of going off of my understanding based on our specific, very, very specific regional area. But I do want to illustrate some of these points, so we're going to go off of what we know. So first thing that we want to cover is reasonable. So if you're ever studying self-defense or the law code in your area, say reasonable belief of imminent danger. So this is a term that you might hear. So reasonable belief of imminent danger. If Mike is over here, take a couple steps back, and I'm over here, there is no imminent, immediate danger. We're two dudes. We're talking to each other. We might be talking aggressively. We may be talking with our hands, but there's absolutely no imminent, immediate danger. Mike can't reach me. I'm an expert in distance. Mike cannot reach me. I can't reach Mike. There is no threat right now. He might be waving his hands around. Mike is not doing anything crazy at the moment, but there's nothing here. What if Mike is like flailing his arms around, gets that angry face and just going crazy, but he hasn't moved from this distance? There's still zero, no imminent danger that I'm in threat. Why? Because I have 20 more feet that I can go this direction. I can easily just walk away from this. If something were to happen in this space, two things could happen. Mike enters into my personal space, and this is where we get into the difference. Personal space, or he doesn't. If he doesn't, I can just walk away. Now in Virginia, we have a stand your ground or no retreat rule, meaning I don't have to walk away. I don't have to leave. I don't have to flee for it to be self-defense. I can, if Mike does create a threat that I sincerely believe is going to be life-threatening immediate and put my life in danger, I can defend myself. But there's this gray zone between him and me that he has to cross first. I don't have to flee, but he has to cross it. If I cross it, it is no longer self-defense. If we're two dudes yelling at each other and I'm blah, 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 and I'm trying to puff up and I'm trying to look like a badass or whatever to intimidate this guy, that line has been crossed. It's no longer self-defense. I could have done that direction instead of that direction. It's not self-defense. Important thing to remember. So this space is huge. That imminent, immediate threat of danger. I have to fear for my life or it's not self-defense. Or I have to feel for my safety or it's not self-defense. That's part one. Okay, so next part of this, Mike is attacking me. We're about the same size. Mike has some little bit of weight on me, but we're here. Proportionate force. So if Mike is aggressive, like he has entered into my space, one thing that I want to mention is how he enters it. Back up just a little bit. I'm not fleeing. I have a bad leg. I'm not moving very fast. I don't run. For whatever reason, I'm not going that direction. This is my space. Let's just take that direction, which is the first option. If you have the option to take, go that way, go that way. Again, in our state, I don't have to go that way, but you should go that way if you have the option, assuming I can't go that direction. And Mike has entered this space. That's one of the first things. Don't extend your arm too far, but extend your arm. Stop, step back. I feel threatened. Give them a verbal cue. If you cross this line, whatever it is, I'm afraid for my life. If you take another step, I'm going to be forced to defend myself. Right? These are the types of things you have to be able to consider. Where is that line? And we're going to do some drills, so stay tuned at the end for drills that we cover when we do this. Personal space, understanding and ranging, distance management and all this. So stay tuned for that. But when he crosses this line, he needs to know that that line has been crossed, right? This makes it very clear that this is self-defense. You know, some people argue that you shouldn't give them some sort of cue that you're going to defend yourself, but I think it's pretty fair to say that if I give that verbal cue and there's people watching, there's cameras or whatnot, it makes the case a lot easier, is that I'm afraid for my life right now, you need to back up, or something along those lines. Please don't take another step forward. Notice what the hands are doing. They're coming to the center line, they're coming up. They look passive, but as we've covered in like blocking and defensive drills, I want my hands up. I want to be able to counter. I'm forcing him around my guard. This type of stuff, it is very, very passive looking. I'm also shifting my weight to the back. I'm preparing because I don't know what's going to happen. But in this case, my hands come up and I'm giving him a verbal like moment out. I'm giving him another option. Please do not take another step forward. I don't want to have to defend myself. This sort of thing is extremely important. If he does enter now, he's done it willingly. He's done it with the intention of attacking me, right? That is an important part of this. And then once he's entered in, proportionate use of force. So as he moves in, if he just lays hand on me, that's one thing. I'm now concerned for my life. I can attack back. Now, how do I do that, right? Mike puts his hand here. I whip it over. I drop him down. I hit him in the temple, and I just go to town. Mike is on the ground, and I'm defending myself. I'm defending myself. I'm defending myself. Nope. It's no longer proportionate use of force, right? He puts a hand on me. He doesn't do anything else. That's it. He tries to throw a punch at me. Boom. If I pull out a gun and shoot him, was that proportionate? He puts a hand on me. Boom. Some people would make that argument. Who attacked me? It's going to be real hard to make that argument. It's going to be real hard to make that argument because you ratcheted it up, right? You took the person, you drop him to the ground, you start pummeling him, you curb stomp him. It's no longer a thing. You're escalating. You've taken it too far. This is why it's extremely important to have a variety of skills. One of my biggest disagreements with Krav Maga schools is the mentality of it's a war zone. Every self-defense situation is a war zone. I'd rather be, killing this person and be judged in court. I don't know if you've thought that one through. I can't kill this person, right? That's bad. Again, if your martial arts school isn't covering this, run, go somewhere else. That you want to have, your training should have an escalation of things, right? He lays hand on me, I stop that. And then I give him a chance. He has a chance to come back out of this. Go ahead and do that again, we're here. If I get to this point and he's still swinging, then I'm gonna start escalating this to something else, right? I go for his nose and then I start going for trip. I take him down. Once he's on the ground, then I walk away. If he still keeps coming, like your training will escalate. Then the techniques, the amount of force that you can use should be proportionate. But if it goes from a hand on hand to hand on knife and I'm stabbing this guy, I'm shanking him, that's not proportionate. It won't count as self-defense. Okay, the last part that we're going to cover before we get to the good stuff, which is all the training drills, is how did we get here? I like to think that we got to this situation 3 months, 6 months ago. Your mindset, your training, all the things that you've done in preparation for life have led you to this moment where this person is yelling at you, you're yelling at them, you've been in confrontation, right? You're now at this distance where there is a decision, a line that has to be crossed in order for it to be self-defense, where we have to enter into ranges, where we have to interact in each other's personal space. So in this case, what has happened to get us here? No provocation, right? So if we're here and Mike and I are arguing and we're yelling at each other, that's fine. That's, verbal debate, just ratchet it up a little bit, right? This is just two people angry at each other. But I start entering into his space. I start doing this sort of thing, waving my hand. And now who's defending against who here, right? Did I provoke this? That is a really, really tricky thing. So again, what is your martial arts school teaching you? Does it give you this sense of attitude where, some dude steps on your foot and you show them who's, like Mike's already twitchy now, you show them who's a real badass in this one? Or, it's cool, man. My friends hit me harder, whatever. and then you walk that way. You walk that way with your eyes on them, but you walk that way because other than that, like, you've provoked, and it's no longer a self-defense situation. So these are really, really important legal terms that you will hear if you study actual self-defense, and they're extremely important. And again, they vary from place to place, so you really should know what your laws and codes and whatnot are. In the state of Virginia, this is almost identical for another person, and we're going to be doing those drills. Again, stay to the end of this video. These exact same thing. So I haven't provoked it. There's real immediate danger, and that I'm not forced to run away, but I should avoid this confrontation at all costs. All of that goes into play with defense of another person. So the other person is assumed to be unable to actually defend themselves. You can step in between, and it still counts as them defending themselves, as long as all of those things are still covered. Is that person was in immediate danger. They couldn't, for whatever reason, escape, and I'm going to go through a drill with that in just a second. And that, with everything, all of these other things taken into play, and there's probably, witnesses that can back you up. This person was under threat. They stepped in and defended. And again, you can't escalate. Just because it's someone like your big bad Mike is beating up a child, I can't break his neck. Again, there's people that will argue it, and there's things that are, there's some issues there, but you can't escalate to a certain level. So all of these things are extremely important to keep in mind. Now let's get to some really, really important and useful drills.
Just for the record, I wouldn't beat up a child.
Check. Got it. All right, so we're going to do some drills now. Bob has volunteered to step in for as my friend for the afternoon. First starting out, Bob and I are hanging out. Mike comes and has a bone to pick with the two of us.
You bumped into me, you spilled my beer.
Sorry, Bob, it's on you. And Bob goes, buy Mike a new beer, and we're done. No confrontation. We made a new friend. We're now drinking buddies. Cool. That's it. We did this. We did this thing. We did great. All right. Okay. Next part. Mike confronts the two of us, and it starts escalating, right? So this is the interesting thing. Like, this is the gray zone of why this stuff is important to play out and to figure out the issues here. Mike confronts the two of us. We're two friends. He's angry.
I saw you guys messing around my car. You leaving fingerprints. What's the deal?
It's a really nice car.
It is. Why are you messing it up?
We wanted to touch the car. Whatever it happens to be. The important thing that matters right now is there's two of us and there's one of him. So whatever we do, who's at fault here? It's not self-defense. If we start something, Mike actually has a better credibility for self-defense, even though he's the bad guy. Mike's the bad guy. He actually has a better self-defense thing, because if two guys attack him or defend themselves against Mike, that's another bad thing. So be mindful of this type of stuff. If there's more of you than them, they actually have more of a credible, questionable, what am I trying to say here? Your life is more in threat because there's two of us.
It's a 2-on-1 situation. Although if I'm walking into that and I'm escalating, it
gets gray zone. This is why it's important to play these things out, to game these things out. All right, so I'll take me out of the picture. You're attacking Bob. This is really, really important thing, and we're going to discuss this in just a second. But if I'm walking by and I see Mike beating the tar out of Bob, what do? Now, this is really, really important. If Mike is beating the tar out of Bob, I come on the scene. There's a lot of things that I have to process through my mind super, super quick. The first thing you do, you should be, if you're running up, you should be calling the cops. There's a blah, 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 if I'm far enough away. If this is immediate, like Mike is just completely pummeling this person, Bob is probably going to die in the next matter of seconds if this continues, I have an obligation to stop Mike. Now, here's the thing. What if Mike is an undercover law officer and this person is a real bad guy? What happens there? This is real tricky, and this is, there's been all kinds of legal issues with this type of thing, but this is really important. If I enter into this thing, if I get entangled in this, Is it self-defense? Yes, I am defending this person's life. This law officer shouldn't be killing this person. Okay? This law officer needs to not kill this person. But there's also a lot more going on here. If he's trying to arrest this person, that's a different thing. Like, if I see handcuffs coming out, that might be a cue. If he's saying, you know, what he should be saying, you know, I'm a law officer, blah, 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 you're under arrest, all this other type of stuff, that's a cue for me to, you know, maybe be aware of this, but I should probably be around to see what the heck is happening. There also should be, in that theory, other officers coming around, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff. Now, Mike is bad guy, Bob is good guy. Bob's, you know, person. I saw what happened. These two were arguing. Bob tried walking away, but he's slow. Mike got on him and just started pounding. Now, 100%, I can get involved here. I can enter into this, and I can take over for Bob. Bob can't defend himself for whatever reason. Bob cannot defend himself. 100% I can step in and take the place and defend Bob with all of the same things being the same rules as for myself. I just take the place of Bob. Immediate threat, yes. Tried to avoid. Bob tried to avoid this situation, yes. As long as I don't rip this guy's head off, I subdue him, I stop him from doing anything, and I have a huge advantage. He's focused on Bob, so I can probably just come from behind, take him down to the ground. We're done. I 100% can step in this situation. So these are types of drills that you guys can practice. I actually will show you guys some of these in just a second. But defending against a person with a weapon, we're going to do that in just a sec, becomes really important. But these types of drills, use Bob as a stand-in if you don't have another person, and do these types of training drills where you like come on to a scene. What do you do? What do you do? It's really important. Let's actually do weapons next, and then we're going to give you some distance drills.
All right, so to this point, we've all been disarmed, Bob especially so, but now we're going to introduce a weapon, specifically an end-weighted kind of stick, so a hammer.
Okay. Important drill. Important drill. Very, very important drill. This one, gun, knife, stick, whatever it happens to be. We're two buds, we're walking down the street. This guy, crazy person, attacks with a hammer. I actually had this situation. This was a couple of years back. Crazy person, parking lot. Lots of people were like, what the heck is going on? This person's running around screaming. They have a club. I was basically playing sheepdog, trying to get people moving away as this person was running from one person to the other with stick, trying to get in between them, the people that had no idea were getting out of cars, and crazy person with stick. Absolutely, 100% this type of thing can happen. In fact, I've been there. So Bob is person that cannot, for whatever reason, run away from this situation. Because if this madman has a weapon, he should be moving. He shouldn't be, oh, what's going on? Or standing there. He should be moving. But if he, for whatever reason, he can't, he's deaf, doesn't know that this person yelling, screaming has a weapon, or for whatever reason, this person has a weapon, same deal. I need to protect this person. I have an obligation to do that. In my mind, at least. Some people might just pull out their phone, but in my mind, I would try to defend this. What really becomes interesting is defense of myself. So if Bob and I are walking and Mike attacks me, a lot of times you'll see techniques where, you control the weapon. Have you practiced this? Knife techniques, right? Control the weapon. So he stabs, whoa! Have you practiced this? Again, I'm going to keep asking that. Have you done this? Because these are really, really important drills to train. If your techniques, that's a perfect example. Taking the weapon to the outside, to the far side, makes a lot of sense because he's weaker in this position than if I allowed his arm to come this direction. He can pull back and he can strike again. He can pass it off, right? There's reasons to take it to the outside. But what if the outside Bob's there, right? What if I take it to the outside, boom, and he's in that position. I just hammered my friend, right? So again, train these types of things. If you're not training these things, you're missing out on a really hard, really important part of martial arts self-defense training. All right, so you have to be aware you're doing the technique. So I might do a less advantageous technique where I'm taking this to the inside, mindful of the fact that I'm trying to defend this person while at the same time not getting hammered myself. Right? Huge, huge, important drill.
Also important to note, I don't know why, but we're using a real hammer. If you're going to train these things, do not use the real thing. Try to use some foam stand-in piece.
I'm good. Just took a little claw to the back.
This wasn't my choice, it's not my hammer.
Not the first time I've had a claw to the back of the arm. All right, so we're going to do a really important ranging drill next so that you do understand what is that distance where you yourself are able to defend yourself, or that line. If you take another step, like what does that mean? All right, so let's take a look at that next.
All right, so we're back to look at some techniques on the heavy bag, some training practice. Unfortunately, our heavy bag is very, very noisy. I'll try to mitigate that as much as I can in post. I'll also be here to steady the bag when it gets kind of noisy and we get into some exposition. So, over to you.
Okay, all right, so first thing that we want to do, 80–90% of self-defense martial arts training is footwork. So learning how to manage distance with footwork is a really, really important skill. If you're an instructor out there, you probably do this instinctually. You don't necessarily need to train this because you've already put in the hundreds of thousands of reps. But if you've worked with any new students, this is actually something that I watch even my adult students who have a pretty good understanding of their body in space, unlike kids, you know, they will have a hard time struggling with this. So we're going to start out with just a step drag, so or just a quick little step in. If I'm out here, I instinctually know I need one small step and I'm in contact range. I got a slight bend in my elbow, I can drive through this position. The next one, you take a smaller or bigger step back and you need to do like a gather step, right? So this covers a little bit more space. So you get people to understand different footwork covers different things. So that was a gather step. Now we're going to do a full passing step. So passing step, I've entered into this space. If you find yourself using this technique, it's going back to our personal space. I've entered into this personal space. It's no longer self-defense. It's me attacking this person. So be mindful of that one. But it is important to understand these types of ranging, right? So now that I have a better understanding of, oh, I can't defend myself, right? If I know this distance, how far I need to be or how close I need to be to make one small step, I now can mentally tell if this person's a threat, an actual legitimate threat, or not a threat. Not a threat. Absolutely a threat. They take one small movement, we're in self-defense situation, right? So that line of, if you take another step, I'm going to have to defend myself, or I'm afraid for my life right now, please back up. That's that point. If it's here, it's not that point. And that's the gray zone, right? So if I have this much space, I can easily escape this situation, or we're not in any sort of immediate, like in an instant situation. They need to close the space. If they have a weapon, if they have a gun, a big stick, this changes. The space changes. So again, training that is really important. The next part of this is using the bag for understanding this distance management. So this is where it's going to get loud. We're here, we get the bag moving, and now it's the opposite. I'm stable, and when the bag enters, I know what that distance is. Again, people are really going to have a hard time with this. You'll find, especially early on, as a bag comes back, that people will do this and they'll actually jam their arm, hyperextend a lot of times, or they'll completely whiff it. So I'll do a couple wrong. I'll try to anyway. Right here. I'm locking my elbow out. Not great. This sort of thing, where you really want to, as soon as it enters, go ahead and get it pushing. That's the point. That as soon as it's entered this small zone between jamming and being too far out, that's the point that you want to develop. So that instinct of what is that range? What is that spot? Really, really important skill to develop. And you can do this if you're an instructor, you have some focus mitts or whatever, you work with your people, you're at a distance, you take that step and you throw this arm out there and let them see how far they can drive out. Can they drive through, or is it superficial contact? Because this doesn't count as a strike that's going to do any sort of thing to stop a person. It might be fine to, hey, back up, but I would advise, if I'm going to borrow a mic for this one, I would advise putting hands on the person. Hey, stop moving forward. Go ahead, Mike. boom, right? He can easily take advantage of the fact that I just gave him a thing. Mike likes chin-on technique, so if I grab onto him, oh, he's got my pinky. We're in a bad situation. So I would avoid doing that type of thing, but understanding what that ranging is extremely important.
Also, if you stick your arm out there and you strike me, now I have to defend myself.
Right. All right, so these are some of our thoughts on this idea of personal space. Personal space becomes self-defense. Self-defense becomes self-defense versus fighting. It's a very, very interesting topic. It's one of my favorite things to kind of mull over to think about, especially as a professional martial arts instructor. Again, if you're not teaching this stuff to your students, if you're an instructor, put in the research, do the job of looking this stuff up because it's extremely important. If you're not getting this type of stuff from your martial arts school, have a private talk with your instructor. I'd like to learn more about this stuff. I've been lucky enough that in my martial arts career, I've worked with people where this type of stuff is legitimately important. Military people, police officers, this like 90% of the people I train, where it comes up on the regular, where these types of things are important on a daily basis. So that's important to have that conversation with the instructor. These are the things that I need to learn. These are my goals in my martial arts training. Can we please cover this topic? If they don't know the thing, it's not hard to figure it out, right? You know, I've looked it up. It doesn't take too long. If you can understand law, that's one thing. You can contact lawyers. You know, half an hour or an hour with a lawyer will give you the basis for a lot of this stuff. So it is important. If you're not researching this stuff, you're not actually covering self-defense. You're covering fighting and violence. You know, it's part of it, but it's not self-defense. So be mindful of that. I would love to know your thoughts on this. What do you think? What are the laws in your areas, things that you find interesting? And more importantly, if you have been in a situation like this, where it's this kind of gray zone, or it's a legitimate self-defense, or it wasn't self-defense, and it gets tied up with legality issues, I'd love to know or hear about it in the comments below. So be sure to put some sort of comment below if you've had a situation like that. And as always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. I hope you like this one.